Welcome to the Way of Biohacking, and today's episode. Today we're going to discuss about mental resiliency. Linda's not here with us today. She's on vacation to California.
Yeah, she's doing like a loop, California,
Vegas type of situation.
Looks like she's having fun.
So, can't wait for her to get back. And start us off, Nikki.
Well, mental resiliency is a really interesting topic, and I think it's something that's developed over someone's life. I know personally, like when I first met you, do you remember the first time that we met? I came to you because I got dumped. And I was so upset by it. But back then, like I didn't have any resiliency. I didn't, understand what was going on. I was like 17. And I'm only 20 now, but a lot of things have happened in my life. I had, surgery. I've had some health problems that gave me a different perspective and gave me resiliency because of those hardships.
Yeah, I think definitely, if you look at a lot of spiritual teachers, they talk about the importance of having hardship, because having the hardship kind of gives you resiliency, right? And you don't want to have an easy life where then you're not so strong, right? I think Jordan Peterson really talks about this, along with many people out there talking about the importance of having not like a too rough life, but somewhat of a hard life. Have you come across that? Every Asian kid on Facebook has seen this guy. Dr. Jonathan Kim. Have you seen him?
I don't think so.
All right. So Dr. John Kim is a decorated Navy SEAL, lieutenant sniper. He's a Harvard graduate medical doctor, and he has a cum laude mathematician. And and to top everything off, this guy happens to be an astronaut.
So he does everything.
Yeah. So the running joke is imagine being brother to this guy.
Yeah, you can't one-up him.
And I think, for a while, I even shared this on my Facebook as a Facebook meme. How do you compete with this guy? And I think I saw his Goalcast. It was like a 5-minute, 10-minute clip. And this guy was talking about how his father was abusing his mom, and all he wanted to do was really protect his mom. And when the police came, he still had the gun. And, not to ruin the whole story, but, the cops ended up killing this guy, his father, at a very young age. And that gave him mental resiliency. Yeah,
if that didn't happen, he would end up not becoming the person who he became.
You ever watch the story of Batman?
Yeah, I love Batman.
Yeah, Batman's amazing. He's got weaponized.
That's a good example.
Yeah. He's got weaponized kryptonite in the Batcave just in case Superman steps out of line. Yeah. This guy's prepared, right? But his story is that he witnessed his mom and dad die at a young age, and because the pain was so great, he became a superhero, trying to prevent other people to go through what he did, right? So mental resiliency kind of builds this type of thing. You too, right? You had a health issue, and then you turned yourself around, and you took powers into your own hand, and now you're studying a lot of nutrition, and
Yeah, I mean, things happened to me, and those things made me find what I wanted to do. Going into college, I was a computer science major, and the first day I was in it, I switched my major day one. College. I was like, I don't like it, and I went into gen ed. But then these things, I had a lot of stomach problems, really bad IBS, and I was struggling. Yeah. And changing up my diet and really researching, nutrition, it made me discover I love this stuff. I love talking about this stuff. I love doing this. And I wouldn't be doing this right now. I wouldn't be on this podcast today if that didn't happen to me.
Right.
And then my neck, I grew a vagal schwannoma in my neck, which is a benign tumor. And I think it's from, eating really badly the first 18 years of my life. I ate, Pop-Tarts and cereal.
Right.
But and I have a 6-month MRI every 6 months, and the growth rate is super low because I eat, like, it's almost zero because I eat so well, I think, now. And if that didn't happen to me, like, I remember I was walking out of the hospital, like, I was so happy. Like, I was so happy. Like, I'm in a great mood. Something bad just happened to me, but I'm so happy. I was happy to, like, I'm alive, I was happy to be alive. And that surgery gave me the gift of gratitude. Because I wasn't really grateful before that. Like, I was whatever,
Yeah.
But after that, I was like, wow, like, this is amazing. I started, like, doing little things on my own more. I go to the beach now all the time on my own. I just like, wow, this is beautiful. This is incredible.
Yeah, you hear these stories about a lot of the people in healthcare, like, they have a turning point in their health, and they're like, oh, I had all these issues, and then I turned on to this, and then I decided to get into that field. And you hear a lot of these things. Eventually, we're going to bring Tom on the show, right, the neuroarchitect, and, like, the story I understand, I'm not going to get too into it because I don't want to tell his story, but, he had health issues himself, and
I think what happened to me and him is pretty similar.
Yeah.
It's pretty similar.
Yeah. And okay, I'll let Tom speak for himself when he's on the show, so I don't want to steal any of his thunder. I have two things to say. One, most people, that I come across in my office, they're like, oh, Tay, he knows all the stuff, and he's Tay. All right. But what people don't really understand is that I had horrible grades.
Yeah, my grades in high school were pretty terrible also.
Yeah. I had horrible grades. I had a B average in high school, and I did it without studying, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I went to college. It got really bad. I think college was I was in a really bad place in my life. My priorities were not straight. And those who've known me in college, they have this different persona of who I was back then compared to now, because I changed dramatically. But when I went to grad school, I turned my life around and I studied my butt off. Like I never studied before, out of sheer fear of all these things. And that gave me a lot of mental resiliency. And the last thing is that I hurt my back. I was telling the story to Jen this afternoon during when we were leaving Key Body and Spirit, that I hurt my back and I went to go see all my teachers, and nobody was able to help fix my back. And these are the people who trained me, and except for Dr. Wong, my Yoda guy. Like, except for him, nobody was able to help me. And I went to go see him like 3 times a week, and he was able to get my pain out. But in the end, I took control of my own pain, and I'm like, what stretches would I do for my patients if they had this pain? And I started doing the yoga. And I think going to Lorraine Aguilar from Yoga Flow Studios at the time in Glen Cove, I think, she taught me this style of yoga called Anusara, and it really helped me. But I would still get re-injured, right? So there was a limitations of what I knew about the human body. And eventually, by sheer luck, I started watching YouTube videos on DKU. And
is that a form of yoga or something?
No, DKU is a guy who trains the special forces in South Korea. He's like a martial artist. He recently had a fight and lost. He fought some guy from the UFC in a boxing match. He lasted 6 rounds. But he's not a fighter. He's someone I would consider a martial artist. And what differentiates between a martial artist and a fighter is that fighters, they spar. They really try to hit people. But this guy taught me this technique about isometric contractions for your lower back. And if you do that for a long time, you can lift chairs, right? It's a Qi Gong art. And I think that helped me build my muscles around my back, and my back stopped getting re-injured. So, like, that not only built my mental resiliency about, back pain. And this is the funny thing. When I see patients come in with like severe back pain, like I know what they're going through. I know what they're thinking, because I've been there myself. And I try to like comfort them like with words, but more importantly with the techniques I know.
Right.
Yeah. So I think those are good mental resiliency examples.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of look at it as like a bubble.
Yeah.
Like when you're growing up, like all through high school, I was in a bubble. Like you don't really have an idea of the outside world. You think everything, you're always going to be fine. You're all right. You hear about bad things happening to people, but then their bubble pops when something happens to you, and you realize, wow, like there's so much more to what I was experiencing than this. Like, in high school, I was like, I didn't have a clue. And then the senior year, this kind of changed up everything for everyone in my senior class. One of my classmates passed away. The anniversary is actually coming up. The 21st was the date of the accident, but he was officially like declared gone the 24th. But that really shook up everyone in my high school, and it popped the bubble for a lot of people. So a lot of people that I know from high school, they have a good perspective because of that.
What happened to him?
He was in the back. His friend was driving. He was in the back seat, and his friend was going way too fast, and it was pouring rain. And he turned too fast and went into like a sump.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I remember you having a like a bracelet.
Oh yeah, I still.
You still have it. Wow.
Yeah.
I remember asking you about that. Yeah. That was years back, like 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
So that changed a lot of my friends and my classmates' perspectives as mine. But when it really changed was with my surgery. But that was the beginning.
You ever hear of this guy named Goggins?
David Goggins?
Yeah. That guy's got serious like.
Yeah, he's a maniac.
Yeah, he's a Navy SEALs. He kept on running marathons every single day or something like that. The guy is super jacked, super ripped, and he drops F-bombs like every sentence, phrase.
Yeah, I like what he does with resiliency, but I think he takes it to the extreme.
Yeah, he's one of those.
Takes it to the next. He likes to make his body resilient. Like he'll put his body through extreme stress, where he'll run a marathon every week or something like that. Which it probably does help him, but mental toughness I think could be achieved in a variety of ways, that being one of them.
I think, like this topic is really good because a lot of parents tries to provide the best for their kid and is often in material goods and opportunities and the best teachers. But at the same time, one of the best gifts that you can give to your child is a hard time, right?
Yeah, my one of my dad's like go-to things was if me or my brother were crying over something that wasn't a big deal, he would be like, if you don't stop crying, I'm gonna take you to the children's hospital and show you kids that have something to cry about. And like at the time I was like, this guy's out of his mind. But like looking back at it, like it's a really interesting thing to say because it gives you kind of a perspective. Like I'm crying about not getting a video game, and there's a kid who's might be very ill, who has a much better reason to cry than I do. Yeah. And I remember, I'll never forget him saying that. He said it to my brother also, and one time he actually brought my brother to a hospital. And it really instilled something like, maybe there's a bigger picture going on at a young age.
One of the books that was very inspiring for me to read as I was around your age. I read Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And this guy's got a wonderful story. I think chapter 1 was about him and his brother wanted to go to law school or something like that, and they didn't have the money. So he had a great idea about him writing about successful people, and he thought that was a great idea to make money for some reason because he knew he had the ability to write. And the first job he was commissioned with Mr. Andrew Carnegie, who happened to be like the richest guy on the planet at the time, from U.S. Steel.
Hall.
Yeah. and he goes through this journey, and Mr. Carnegie hires him for the next 20 years without pay.
Oh my gosh.
And he takes the job saying that, I know that you're going to be responsible for whatever, and he did. And the rest of the story goes about him overcoming this like great odd. And he wrote this book, and he totally forgot that he even wrote the book. And later on, like, he published it, and the publisher's like, this is the best book that we need to, everybody read it, everybody loved it. Mahatma Gandhi read the book, and he's like, I need this translated in Hindi right now, and the book got like, how do you say, published in multiple languages and stuff like that. And, people find, I think, quintessentially one of their greatest strengths in their greatest time of weakness. If you look at the story of Bruce Wayne when he was a kid, the DC comic book character of Batman, he finds his pain, he grows up and he uses it, and he channels that anger towards positive things. Do you have any good examples of mental resiliency that inspired you?
Fiction
or nonfiction?
I really think Batman's a good one. I'm a big Batman fan, so when you brought that up, I got excited. But I think it's a really good one. I know it's not very practical. Like, you can't go out and beat people up. But it's interesting how the premise of it is you take something bad and you see the light, you see something good in it. I mean, I've done that with all my problems. Like my neck, the outcome was that I found my passion, and there's a bunch of things that have happened where I've figured out, this is good. This is what ended up happening. Like, I brought up my breakup earlier. The good thing I found out with that, I got really close with my dad. And because I spent so much more time with him. I was starting college, and I was home, and I spent a lot of time with my dad, and I got so close with him, and that wouldn't have happened. So I'm super thankful for everything. I really believe everything happens for a reason. And when I recently left school, I was struggling. That I was struggling. I was so frustrated. I was so confused. And Tom really was like, I believe you're right where you're supposed to be. Everything happens. You're right where you're supposed to be. And it was really comforting to hear someone say that. And then things played out. Like, now I'm doing this with you, and I'm doing this show. Now I'm going away to school. Like, things played out the way they were supposed to, and I'm so excited about it.
Nikki is leaving in first week of January.
Yeah, moving alone.
But we decided to not let Nikki go. He's gonna be zoomed in for the podcast.
Yeah, I'll still be here.
We made arrangements, scheduling, logistics.
I purposely took my Friday classes early so I could be here.
That is so odd. Like 3 years ago when I met you, or 4 years ago, like, I would have never thought.
I know.
Yeah, that you'd be sitting here doing this podcast.
How crazy is it?
Yeah. Tom's got a good resiliency story, right? What else? I think books are very inspiring. I mean, there's a lot of books on, or movies, I should say, that a lot of people are reading to. But one of the most interesting characters that I found as a kid was like, what's this guy? Tom Hanks movie.
Castaway?
Not Well, Castaway's one of them, right? He kept on getting FedEx delivery in the island that he was supposed to deliver.
Yeah, Wilson.
Yeah, and Wilson. But Forrest Gump, you ever watch that movie?
Yes.
Yeah. He had nothing. He had no intelligence, but he knew what love was, and he was able to overcome all these things using very few principles, being a good friend,
right?
Really loving one person, right? All of these like good values. And another story that really impacted my life when I was in college was Malcolm X.
Yeah, I know who he is.
Yeah. Spike Lee, the director, he directed that movie, and Denzel Washington, he should have gotten the Academy or some sort of award for that role. I'm surprised that Denzel Washington did not get because the acting in that movie was just, oh my God, like it felt like I was really watching Malcolm X. And because I got to see Malcolm X's speeches outside of the movie. I read his autobiography. I wrote a paper on his autobiography. And his father was killed, most likely by the Ku Klux Klan. He came to New York in Harlem, and he was hustling, and he ended up going to jail. And in jail, he found Islam, and he converted, and he found nationalism, like pride that he's black for the first time. And he became a powerful speaker, and he found...
And if he didn't go to jail...
Yes, that would have never happened.
So I know there's times where things seem really dark for a while, and then you end up seeing the light. You just gotta hold out for a little while, and you'll see like, wow, this is why that happened. If I would have stayed in school, I wouldn't do this show. I wouldn't be here. I would have been in school. So, and I'm super excited that I have this opportunity now, and it wouldn't have existed if I stayed in school.
There was my dad told me, I asked him when I was a kid, hey, how do heroes be born, right? And he said there's a famous book. The title translates into Romance of the Three Kingdoms, right? It's about these three guys coming together under a peach tree, and they make this oath saying that although we were born on different days, we make a promise to each other, we die on the same day. And my dad talks about heroes are born during hard times. And I remember just recently, I think it was one of those Joe Rogan clips. Like,
I know. Good times.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
Soft men and good times create soft people. Soft people create hard times. Hard times create strong people.
And strong people create good times. And good times
create... cycle.
Yeah, it's a cycle. Yeah.
It's a good quote. Another good one is you'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Yeah.
That's a really good one.
Yeah. I think being an entrepreneur creates a lot of mental resiliency. I think starting a business straight out of school, working to build a practice, I think that has like enormous challenges. And if you look at the numbers, I think it's like 10% of the graduating class that actually starts a business with their profession. The other people are looking for jobs and stuff like that. And I had an edge over other people because my parents came to this country as immigrants, and so was I. I'm still an immigrant. Well, I don't consider myself an immigrant. I tell people, get out, this is my country. That's a joke. And I think watching them not being able to speak the language and trying to run a business, and the fact that they pulled it off, and witnessing that as a young kid really taught me the strong work ethic that they had, and showing up and just doing the work even though you had all these handicap. I mean, if Americans were to, I don't think they could fathom this. If Americans were to move to Mexico, right, and not being able to speak Spanish and trying to run a business, I think they would have a stronger appreciation for a lot of people that are immigrants today. And what's, for me, hard to make people understand is that, like, I know a lot of Italian families, the grandparents came here like in the 1920s, you know, like during Prohibition time. They didn't speak the language, but they raised the kids. And I can have relation to what those people have experienced because the American immigration story has something like that. But the kid grows up not almost speaking their native tongue, and they convert to English. But by the time that kid has a kid, that kid doesn't speak the native tongue anymore, and he's fully American. And their politics is like, if you don't like this country, then get out. You know? And I find that very odd because it was only 2 generations ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm Italian, but my dad also he runs his own business, but I don't. If I want to do that, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I still don't know what I want to do. I'm just having faith that things are gonna play out the way they're supposed to. But I might start my own business. What you said was really interesting. That only 10%?
Yeah.
Start their own businesses, and I think it has to do with comfort. It's uncomfortable to start your own business. It's easy. It's not easy, but it's more comfortable to go and get a job for someone else.
Yeah.
To make your own. It's uncomfortable at first. It's hard. So if you get uncomfortable for a little while and you start your own business, it might have really great rewards and benefits. I know going and getting a job might be more comfortable, but you might not get that same fulfillment, and you might not be as proud of yourself.
When I was second year after I graduated from acupuncture school and I started working, the first 2 years I did the math of how many hours I worked and how much money I made. I was making less than minimum wage. And I think when I saw those numbers, I'm like, you know what? I could have gone to work at McDonald's and I would have made more money. And that was very like stressful, that I had a postgraduate degree and I was making less than minimum wage. But you tough through it. You continue to build one brick at a time, and as they say, Rome was not built in one day. And I think that's mental resiliency, that you don't give up, right? I have a patient of mine right now, and actually several, but I want to talk about this one girl. She has cancer, and she, on her own, she wants to do everything natural. And she's winning. Yeah, she's winning. Doing, everything that she can to fight cancer naturally, like sticking to the Gershon therapy diet, eating only good fats, all the things that we talked about on this podcast, and more. Yeah, and I'm so proud of her. And she's got such a positive outlook. And I think that positive outlook is one of the most fundamental things, because even though she's here right now, I believe that her mental state is that I'm gonna die of old age. That's her mental state. So she's not focused on, she's living in the modern day today. She's stressed out like just everybody, and I can't help but not to believe that she thinks about it every single day, right? And I think that's very strong on her part. Yeah.
When I had surgery, Tom kind of taught me this. There was someone, I don't remember the name, but someone shattered their spine, and every night he would imagine his spine getting back into place. And over time, he didn't have any surgeries done. His spine was perfectly aligned. So I have a big scar. You could see how long the incision was. Every night after surgery, for a while, I would just close my eyes and until I fell asleep, I would just imagine it just healing, just repairing.
Okay.
Over and over again. And I was back to working out in my basement a week later, a week after surgery. And I think a part of that is how I ate. I ate really well. But also, I told my brain, heal this. I told my body, heal this, figure this out. And I think if I would have kind of neglected that, I wouldn't have. I mean, going to the gym a week after major neck surgery, I was impressed with myself. But
like a mantra.
Yeah. I was proud of myself. But I think mental fortitude comes into play with that, because if I would have just kind of felt bad for myself and just said, this sucks, screw this, I wouldn't have done that. I would have had a much longer recovery process.
What is that? I think there was a TED talk about what makes children succeed in life, right? And they looked at all these different factors, and guess what it was?
I'm not sure.
Grit. The ability to not give up, whether there is positive people telling them, you're doing a good job, or you're doing bad, or whatever, right? People not giving up is the most quintessential strength that people can overcome whether it's health, financial, business, relationships, all these things, that if you have the ability to not give up, you'll become very successful in whatever it is that you decide to do. And like New Year's Eve is coming right now. A lot of people have goals. Did you achieve any goals for 2021?
Well, I put on a good amount of weight.
Okay.
My goal was to hit 150 pounds, but I'm at like 145.
Okay.
But at the beginning of this year, I was like 125, 130 maybe.
Okay, so you made progress.
Yeah. That my goal is to put on some size, but I'm happy with how I look. When I look in the mirror, I'm proud of myself because I came a long way.
Yeah.
When I dealt with that too, another problem was when I had all those stomach issues, I dropped down to 117 pounds.
Okay.
And at 18, like I looked like a skeleton. It was really bad. So now I'm 145, and I wish I had pictures of myself back when I was 117, and I could compare them, because it's like a night and day difference. I think I've come a long way.
I mean, like, what is that? For me, I'm now 170. This morning when I measured myself, I was 170. At the beginning of the year, I think I was like close to 195. So I lost like 25 pounds. And most people don't realize that I was like 195. And I think having health goals are very important. But I'll talk about that on the next episode. Like, what are my health goals? And then the importance of sharing these stories so that people know, what is it that I'm doing.
Yeah. They could relate to it.
Yeah. What other things can we talk about mental resiliency? What advice, if people are listening to this, right?
If you're going through a difficult time, don't throw in the towel. Don't think that it's gonna be like this forever, because you might come out of it in a really good place. Like I spoke about when I was so sad when I left school. I was so confused. I didn't know what I was gonna do with my life, and I ended up getting this and doing this, and I'm so thankful for it. So don't think that everything's just gonna be bad for a long time, because things will work out.
On the flip side, on the other side of the equation, for me, I'm like, oh man, I was trying to do this like podcast and YouTube channel, and then these things, they didn't work out. This guy, like, he had his own personal circumstances that he couldn't do the thing, and then I was sitting on thousands of dollars of worth of equipment, and just sitting there collecting dust in the back of my mind as I'm going to sleep, trying to be at peace. And I'm like, I'm gonna go to sleep, and everything's gonna work out. I'm not gonna give up, right? And then you pop up and like,
here we are. I come out of thin air. Yeah. It is crazy to think about, though. Like 3-4 years ago, when I came here for the first time, I was so upset about getting dumped, and now how much has changed, and now I'm here doing this. If I didn't get dumped, maybe I wouldn't have came, and then I wouldn't have done, like, things just play out in such an interesting way. And it's, if you're in a spiral, and I'll look back and see what has happened that has gotten you to that point, and it might give you a good perspective.
I think, for me, like, this YouTube channel / podcast is like a testament, because like there's a famous guy I listen to. He has a personal development. His name is Brian Tracy, and he's got this thing on leadership, and he talks about the importance of leadership, how it is the most rarest resource on the planet. It's not gold, it's not money, it's not none of these things. And I think Tony Robbins took this concept and rebranded it as being resourceful. You don't need resource, you need to be resourceful. And in order to have the ability to be resourceful is the ability to have leadership. And Brian Tracy talks about how leadership is needed not only in our homes, businesses, nonprofits, church, government, politics, schools, everywhere. And we need leadership to take us into the future. And I think people respond to leadership based on emotional connection. Because if you look at a classroom, the teacher is the person with the highest emotional intelligence, because the teacher is not only know their own emotions, but the children's emotions, and they appeal to the emotions and then say, let's do this, let's follow this lesson plan, and let's learn this. Oh, you hurt yourself and fell and you have a knee pain. Okay, but you're gonna be fine. You know, and I think in modern day era, we see leaders on TV, but not in our lives that much. And I think it's important to identify people, support, cultivate, and inspire people to do extraordinary things from ordinary people.
And it goes back to the childhood saying, like, be a follower, be a leader, not a follower.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to kind of see what everyone's doing and do something differently. It's hard not to just kind of, all right, I'm going to go with the flow. You know, instead of trying something new and changing it up, it's really hard to kind of stray away.
I think there's a fine balance between like you trying to be a leader, and if you're a leader in the beginning stages, like you're gonna make a lot of mistakes, right? But if you're a refined leader, then you like make less mistakes. And I've seen like good leaders follow people to make mistakes because that's how they learn, right? So I think it's good to have like a good balance of team members around you to do this type of thing. And when a team gets together to build mental resiliency, I think you have a whole different dynamic. Are you familiar with the TV show The Last Airbender?
Yeah, I watched it as a kid.
You watched it as a kid? How'd you like it?
I don't remember. I watched it when it came out. I don't know when it came. It was like the 2000s.
Yeah, early 2000s.
So I was like 4 or 5.
Okay.
So I don't remember much of it, but I did watch it when it went on Nick, when it was like live on Nick. I watched it.
Did you watch the whole thing from beginning to end?
I don't remember, but I did watch it. I know I did.
Did you know that Linda's a huge fan?
Yeah, she's talked about it. She was trying to get me to start it again. I might.
Yeah, you should. I'm a huge fan myself. A huge fan. But there's this guy, Aang, and he's like the Dalai Lama. He was the chosen one, right? To be the avatar. And something happens to him. He gets frozen in ice. People forget about him. And he finally comes back. And he finds these group of friends, right? And they go on this like epic journey. And if you look at a lot of like other stories, adventure stories, like Conan the Barbarian from the 80s, you know, he finds this like group of team to go through this trial. You see video games, like one guy starts an adventure for and then that's the leader, and then all these people come together and do that journey together, like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. And what keeps them going? What is the hero's journey? You're familiar with Joseph Campbell, the hero with 1,000 faces?
I'm not sure.
Like the topic that we're discussing right now really talks about that. Joseph Campbell is a guy, an American professor / academic / scholar, philosopher, and he has this book called A Hero with 1,000 Faces, and he finds the common denominator of all stories, ranging from Jesus Christ to Luke Skywalker, and every story that you can find, it's about a person with an ordinary life gets pulled into this new world, whether it's the Force or Harry Potter magic or whatever the case may be. And in that story, you find teachers and friends that come and make you grow in extraordinary ways. And then you get to this, you learn all these cool things, and then you get tested through this like trial of fire, and your goal is to like confront your darkest fears.
Like when Luke went under the tree.
Yeah. He sees he sees himself when the Darth Vader mask breaks. It's him, indicating like he can become Darth Vader, and when he confronts his darkest fears, the reward of confronting your darkest fears is that you go back to where you started. You come full circle in your story, and then you live your happy life, and that is your reward. But the only difference is, because you went that full circle, you're now a different being. Yeah. And
Interesting.
this concept is very similar to the word in Sanskrit, yoga. Yeah, a lot of people say, if we say yoga, they're like, oh, they think,
Stretching.
Stretching, women in spandex clothes and, doing all these things, or sometimes men. But that's the perception of yoga, right? But yoga, I believe it means union. And what it means through union, not just like me and the universe is one thing, I am one with the universe. There's like, I guess, like that's part of it, but it's also like union with, if I continue this practice, the student can become the teacher, and the teacher is now be unified with the teacher version of yourself. And if you go further, you find the disciple, and you have union with yourself, with a mentor and a mentee, right? And if you disappear and that student now impacted another person the same way that person did,
Right.
The Tao Te Ching, the book about Taoism, I think chapter 38 talks about that. To perish but to still influence is to be eternally present. And that's what they call sage mode, to have an influence over people even though you're gone, like Jesus, Buddha,
Right.
Prophet Muhammad, a lot of spiritual teachers. And if you look at those spiritual teachers, they have like tremendous amount of like mental resiliency. Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I know it makes me think about Daredevil, the hero Daredevil.
Yeah.
He goes blind.
Yeah.
And him going blind, it hyper enhances his other senses to like 11. So if he didn't go blind, he wouldn't become that hero.
Right.
So he had to go through, like you said, like that trial.
Yeah.
He had to go blind in order to become a better person. And it's interesting, it's kind of that happens with a lot of people in a smaller scale. They go through something that's bad, but they see the light. They see that it ends up being good for them. They see that it shoots them in the right direction.
Have you seen Karate Kid or Cobra Kai?
I've seen Cobra Kai. I've seen all of them.
Yeah.
I like Cobra Kai. The Karate Kid one is great too.
I mean, there's like good, redemption stories, right? You get beaten up by some bullies, and then you start learning karate, and you learn to kick some butt. But then you can become the hero for yourself, and if you continue to do bad, you become the villain yourself, and the karma continues and all that stuff. And I think this is where on future topics we should talk about more about who are the important teachers in your life, right? Who are the people teaching you about mental resiliency, your
mentors,
outlook.
I think mentors, all about mentorship would be a good episode.
Yeah. I can't wait. I gotta wait for Linda to come back, because I think we could talk about The Last Airbender, right? There's a really good mentor. His name is Iroh, Uncle Iroh. He's like the ultimate mentor in that storyline. And I think everyone should have that, like their own personal Mr. Miyagi type of situation. Yeah. All right. That's about our time. And wait for our future episodes. We're going to wrap up the year. It's been a very interesting year.
It has.
And we have a good lineup coming up for 2022. And it's not going to just be Nikki, myself, Linda, but we are going to bring other guest speakers. So stay tuned. Hit that like button, subscribe, and please support this channel, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
All right.